White House in the office of the President of the United States, we present an address by Dwight D. Eisenhower.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. We must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
And we'll be faced with equally consequential decisions in the 21st century. Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.
If you have enough data on a person, especially biometric data, and if you have enough computing power, you can understand that person better than the person understand himself or herself. And then you can control this person, manipulate them, and make decisions for them.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants.
People will literally be part of a network. All the bodies, all the brains would be connected together to a network, and you won't be able to survive if you're disconnected from the net.
With AI taking over many of the unskilled and possibly some of the skilled activities, then there will be people for whom seems to be society won't have much use for these people.
We need to accept that there will be some pain in the process.
I think we're going to have to think about a recalibration of a whole range of human rights that are playing out online.
Individual carbon footprint tracker.
Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
That's a hostile corporate takeover of your body and a digital surveillance censorship dictatorship.
President Eisenhower tried to warn us about this years ago. The hostile takeover of a scientific,
technological elite.
They provide much more powerful intelligence for decision making.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? You will rule on that.
The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin.
Now that we've cracked the code of life, it will not take much longer before we can start to play God.
The new powers that we are gaining now, especially the powers of biotechnology and artificial intelligence, are really going to transform us into gods.
It's a total, complete AI takeover of every facet of human life, like Harari and others have been saying.
Given all the technological developments, it might be feasible, even easy, to support people, even if they don't work, to give them a universal basic income, to give them enough food, enough medicine, and so forth. The big question is meaning. What will they do all day? And one of the answers is that they will just play computer games all day, virtual reality games. They will spend more and more time playing virtual reality games that will give them much more excitement and emotional engagement than anything in the real world outside.
But what I see is a huge disruption. That is, before we get to the world that Yuval envisaged in his description of the future, there's going to be a complete destabilization of the human condition and of human societies. This is not going to happen quietly.
Like I said 2 weeks ago, The cost of literally everything is not only going up, but it's about to skyrocket. And I regret to say that in just the last 2 weeks, the evidence of this has become more and more apparent. Food, fuel, and subsequently everything under the sun will cost more and will continue to rise in the weeks, months, and probably the next 2 years to come. Inflation is at the highest it's been in 40 years, and that is just the beginning. Inflation from here on out is going to dramatically increase as the value of the dollar continues to diminish. One of the reasons for this is the cost of fuel. Everything that we purchase in our lives is coming from something that operates on fossil fuels, whether it be a truck, train, or airplane. As the cost of fuel goes up, so does everything else. One of the reasons why the cost of fuel is going up is because of the canceled pipelines here in the United States. I made a point in my prior video mentioning the Keystone Pipeline as just one example, and some people unfortunately focus on that to say, well, hey, the Keystone Pipeline is not yet finished and that has not affected anything. But the point that I was making, or should have specified better, is that many pipelines that were active have now been canceled and the leases for them nullified. This has never been done, and we went from pumping oil from under our very feet to now trying to purchase it from countries on the complete opposite side of the world, which is thus further increasing the cost of fuel. Unfortunately, this is totally by design, and the fallout of this would have been known by the experts in this industry, in the field, and those who had the positions of power to do so. Now, another key factor that's causing the inflation and cost of everything to go up is the fact that we've been printing trillions and trillions of dollars in just the last few years. Now, printing money in itself does not just inherently cause inflation. However, when you print money in the form of stimulus checks and send it out to the masses and the economy to be spent, that does cause inflation. And if you look here, between 2010 to 2015, we printed approximately $1 trillion, which, by the way, is a ton of money. However, in the last year, we printed $3 trillion. I'll say that again, $1 trillion over 5 years compared to $3 trillion in 1 year. This in itself is catastrophic for the value of the dollar and collapsing it. Now, that being said, because of the cost of everything going up, whether it's because of the cost of fuel and the fallout from that, and whether it's the printing of money and the fallout from that, now that things are costing more money than ever, people are now spending less, and when they do spend, they're using their credit cards. Hence why the consumer credit usage and debt is at the highest ever and will continue to go up. Because again, if people can't afford to use their debit cards to purchase things, they're going to use their credit cards. And the numbers are already showing this. This will continue to rise. Now, because people are spending less, because again, the cost of everything has gone up, we're now seeing that retailers, whether it be Walmart, Target, Amazon, their inventories are now too high, and so they are now trying to offload their inventory, because you may not be aware that when a company has something on their shelves, they have to pay taxes on it. Which is why if you ever wonder when you go to the store or something, like, why do they run out of this? Why don't they just buy more? Well, it's because they want to have a precise amount on hand in order to avoid paying the taxes on it. So now that people are spending less, these retailers are trying to offload the products, their inventory. And the media is spinning this like, oh, that's a good thing. You can now get things at a discount. However, that is perhaps the most short-sighted way imaginable to interpret this. Because as these big box retailers dump their products, it will then have a supply and demand fallout, which is that over time, as you're trying to buy these same products that they have less of, the cost of that will continue to go up as well. And now that people are purchasing less because everything costs more, you're seeing the evidence of that with the reduced shipping container rates, and now that they're plummeting. In early 2020, during the crisis, all of that went up, but now that you're seeing here, recently, it is now collapsing. That right there is indicative of the very fact that people are now spending less, and they are of course spending less because things are more expensive. This is like a domino effect. It carries over everywhere. Now, one of the more alarming things that I've came across in the last couple days is the fact that big tech industry corporations are now rescinding their job offers. This right here is a massive red flag. So here's what happened. You have people that have accepted a job offer, put in their notice, and right before they're about to start their new position that they're all excited about, The job offer was rescinded, and this is happening to thousands and thousands of people, and this is going to carry over into other industries as well, and far sooner than you think. This is not just indicative of a so-called recession. This and everything else I've already mentioned is indicative of what will become an absolute depression.